And I think we could be set up to be witnessing a massive supply shock in Bitcoin as we speak, because we have the largest nation state in the world openly declaring that they want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And this is happening at a time when 900,000 Bitcoin have just completely evaporated, leaving the exchanges over the past 2 years. But Bitcoin isn't the only hard money that's seen a little bit of a supply shock right now. We can see that silver is seeing things that it hasn't seen in 6 years, as people are absolutely tripping over themselves to accumulate the shiny metal. And based upon the words of the Trump administration, you're going to see that we might be set up for a little bit of a perfect storm when it comes to a Bitcoin supply shock. So I want to play you the interview that's also been taking the world by storm. This is Bo Hines. He is inside the Donald Trump administration. I want you guys to listen very carefully to what he says in this interview.
Well, we delivered on the president's promises that he made on the campaign trail. The president was adamant about creating the SBR. We wanted to make sure that we did it right in a way that respected Bitcoin for being so unique. And also gave credence to innovation in other spaces of the digital asset world. So, for us here, we look at Bitcoin, it's not a security, it's a commodity. It has intrinsic stored value that's traditionally accepted. It has, as David likes to describe, the immaculate conception. There's no issuer. And that's why, as you saw in the executive order, we compared this to digital gold. It's something that's imperative for the United States to have, retain, continue to build on. And I think that's worth pointing out that the way that this is constructed, we talked about ways of acquiring more Bitcoin in budget neutral ways that won't cost the taxpayer a dime. And what I like to say about this president, I think it's high time that our president started accumulating assets for the American people, which is what President Trump is doing, rather than taking it away. And I think that's one thing that we really wanted to make clear in this executive order. And we're looking forward to working with our partners at Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce in order to find those budget neutral ways in which we can acquire more. I've been asked all the time, it's like, how much do you want? And I said, well, that's like asking a country, how much gold do you want, right? I mean, as much as we can get.
America wants as much Bitcoin as they can get. What did you think when you originally saw that interview, Rob?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of impressed with this Bo Hines guy. He sort of came out of nowhere. He was a college quarterback. He was known for being like a college football player, and now he's the head of like digital assets group for the president. It was pretty confusing when we first heard the headlines that he was named to be the head of this group. But now you see him on stage and he's talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve after the executive order has been signed. And I mean, he's been the most vocal member of this administration, coming out and saying that the government wants as much Bitcoin as possible. Again, this must all be budget neutral accumulation. That means moving money around. They can't use new money or print new money or get Congress to sign some bills, unless, of course, Senator Loomis gets her bill passed. But right now, they've got to find out ways, be creative to not spend any more money, but use money they already have to allocate it towards Bitcoin. And so what was interesting was, of course, we've all talked about the revaluing of the gold certificates that are currently valued at $42 an ounce when they are missing out on the market price today, which is over $3,000 an ounce, which would give the Treasury an additional $800 billion and allow them to go and play and possibly buy some Bitcoin with that markup on the balance sheet. But Senator Cynthia Loomis was at the DC Blockchain Summit on stage with Michael Saylor. That's where we got the clip from the beginning of this live stream. And she said that not only, of course, could we revalue the gold certificates, but America has vast energy resources and that the government needs to put these towards acquiring Bitcoin. So are we going to see a Department of Defense initiative sort of along the lines of the software thesis, where the military sees having this wall of cybersecurity, having hash force, having hash rate within, of course, the American jurisdiction, but also under the direct control of the government to make sure that they have the ability to move Bitcoin when needed. If this is the neutral reserve asset of the world, if you do not have access to hash rate, it is it's not really up to you as to when your Bitcoin moves, right? So it does seem as if the government not only knows that they want it for number go up and helping to solve the debt problem, but also in order to have hash rate to be able to mine Bitcoin and also move it when need be.
I just saw a comment in the live chat that just reminded me of what you just said there, Rob, and it kind of reinforces how important it is to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, because not everyone can. Before we get down that rabbit hole, we've got 3,586 of you guys tuning in between Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble, and we'd love to know, how much Bitcoin do you think America is going to buy? I'm really interested by that. We've got a ton of the regulars in the chat. We got Johnny Midas, we got All Night Hider, and then McLovin said this, kind of wild to think that only 210 million people could own 0.1 Bitcoin if it was divided evenly and none was lost. It is pretty wild to think, because what percentage of that is the global population? Is that 0.2% of the global population? Quick maths off the top of my head on a live stream isn't the best, but I believe there's about 8 billion people in the world, and I think 1% of 8 billion would be 80 million. So if only, okay, my quick maths is way out, because 210 million people would be about
2.5%. Yeah, 2.5%.
There you go. Rob saved me there. That's still a very low number in regards to how many people could own 0.1 Bitcoin. And if you guys are late, you didn't see the beginning little portion of this live stream, we did kind of run through the maths, and we did kind of briefly discuss that if Bitcoin's at $23 million a coin, like Michael Saylor is now predicting it could be at, if it's got a $500 trillion market cap, if you've got 10% of a Bitcoin, all of a sudden you're squatting on $2.38 million worth of purchasing power if Bitcoin does do what a multi-billionaire Michael Saylor believes it does. So I believe you probably can retire with $2.4 million today if Bitcoin is at those kind of price levels. So great comment there in the chat, McLovin. It is really crazy to think about that.
Yeah, 21 million is not a lot for a global population. So yeah, it's crazy to think. I mean, is 2.4 million bucks enough to retire today? Could you live off $2.4 million? Could you never work again with $2.4 million?
I couldn't where you're living, Rob, but I certainly could in my neck of the woods. Down here in Peru, 2.4 million big ones will get you a long way. I actually, funny little story, I went to dinner last night with, let's say, 2 friends of mine, and we got everything on the menu at a really nice Peruvian restaurant here in Cusco. It was about 80 bucks for dinner for 3. We got everything. We got like 4 entrees, 4 mains, 2 desserts, and it was like $85. Food was increíble. It was really nice too. So depending on where you are in the world, Rob, obviously answers that question. I'm not sure how far 2.4 million big ones would get you in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, with just inflation and the dollar, I mean, $2.4 million sounds like a lot of money, but then if you got mouths to feed and a roof to keep over your head, college to pay for, it goes quick, man. It goes quick. You gotta make I'm just trying to prove the urgency of accumulating as much Bitcoin as you possibly can right now, while you can still get it for less than $100,000. People are going to look back in a couple of years and be absolutely dumbfounded that people in 2025 have that opportunity.
Absolutely. So I promise the guys, we're not just going on random tangents about how quickly the dollar is losing purchasing power, because it is related to what we were just talking about. People are scrambling to buy Bitcoin. They're scrambling to buy silver, as we saw the lease rates for silver were absolutely skyrocketing, as we showed you guys in the introduction of today's video. We can also see central banks are absolutely scrambling to buy gold right now. And this is all happening at a time when the largest holders of treasuries, Japan and China, are dumping treasuries aggressively in the last quarters to end 2024, as we can see here. We can also see another really cool chart here. This is actually showing us that the net foreign official purchases of US Treasury notes and bonds, 12-month rolling sums, just hit its lowest level since well, the lowest level in what, a long time is what this chart is showing us. So what I think is really interesting that we potentially could be seeing a little bit of a changing of the guard here, Rob. Everybody is watching foreigners dump US treasuries. Obviously, they're doing this at a record rate, and we're watching the mad scramble for hard money like gold and silver. We briefly discussed this article a little while ago on the channel. Traders are moving so much gold from the Bank of England that the waiting time has octupled. That's an 8x increase in the amount of time you need to wait to get your hands on the physical gold if you are trying to get it out of the Bank of England, which is obviously why we tell people, buy Bitcoin, buy the real thing. This is why we always tell you guys about Rhino Bitcoin. But what do you think about this supply suffocation we are seeing? And do you think inflation is going to get worse where you're living, Rob, considering we're seeing all of this selling of treasuries around the world? Now, before I show you the rest of this rabbit hole, just want to remind you guys, if you wanted to join in on the fun and also buy some Bitcoin, we always encourage you guys to check out what Rhino Bitcoin is doing. We call them the all-in-one Bitcoin super application for very good reason. They're the best place for you guys to buy your Bitcoin, but you can also sell Bitcoin on Rhino. You can send Bitcoin anywhere around the world using the Lightning Network on Rhino, and they're even giving you guys $10 of free Bitcoin if you sign up with Rhino and use a promo code Bitcoin News. So we always encourage you guys to check out what Rhino is doing.
Yeah, that's one point that biology brings up a lot, that America sort of has this monetary empire, right? The whole world needs dollars in order to transact with each other. And because of that, there's a lot of demand for dollars across the planet. And they were able to increase the money supply by $7 trillion during COVID. And the whole entire world was able to absorb that. And so inflation really took off in 2022, end of 2021. But if the rest of the world did not take dollars, that situation would have been a whole lot worse for Americans and those who do hold dollars. So it's interesting to see, because I mean, there is a lot of privilege with being someone who primarily transacts in dollars, right? The whole entire world needs it. That means there's a lot of demand for it. That keeps its value up. But if we're in a situation where they are dumping treasuries, they don't want dollars, they're moving towards gold, they're moving towards hard money such as Bitcoin, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think that the dollar is going to just poof and go out of circulation anytime soon, but even just a little loss of purchasing power, as we've seen over the years, it eats away at your standard of living. And soon you're paying double for what you did just a year ago at the grocery store. And that means you have less money in your pocket for other things. So yeah, it does seem as if there's a global race for hard money, and we're seeing it in these lease rates for gold and silver. It's interesting. Bring up the silver chart. Look up silver on TradingView, right? Because during the Great Financial Crisis, right after it, around 2011, it spiked from when the crisis started. Silver was around $14. When it spiked all the way up to $50 in 2011, but then it crashed. Yeah, so if we zoom out a lot on the silver, and it's just been doing nothing literally for over a decade, right? 15 years. It's not even close to hitting an all-time high. So, but it's grinding up. It's grinding up. And I mean, but is silver demonetized, right? I mean, that's why Great Britain was able to take out China in the 1800s, because China ran on a silver standard and Great Britain was on a gold standard, and Great Britain was willing to give them all the silver for their goods. And then they were, when they didn't want that silver anymore, they gave them opium and got them addicted, and they went to war and da 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 da. But yeah, silver has not really been a monetary asset for at least the last 70 years, right? I mean, in the 60s, they stopped putting silver in the coinage in America. And so it's been an industrial use case. Are we seeing the remonetization of silver as it grinds all the way back up from its low of $11 back, I guess, when it crashed in 2020, and is now up to 34? But with the lease rates on those charts, you're showing that, yeah, I mean, there is demand for it, right? I mean, and so even a metal like silver that had been demonetized for at least a century and a half seems to be coming back in favor. And I think it just goes to show you, again, people don't want pieces of paper. They want hard assets. They want sound money. They want gold, silver, Bitcoin.
Absolutely. That's a very, very nice note to kind of leave that little sound money rabbit hole on, because that's exactly true. People want hard money, and they want it